Hi, the Brisbane Broncos are 10-8 after losing to the Parramatta Eels 22-20 on Friday night, ending the winning streak at 5 and starting the run home to the finals with a disappointing loss in a game where they were heavily favoured. And I want to start this week with a reading of the Rugby League Laws of the Game international level with notes on the laws and NRL Telstra Premiership Interpretations April 2023 edition, and we'll begin at section 14 offside. And as you'll see, it says a player is offside except when he was in his own goal if the ball touches or is touched, held or kicked by one of his own team behind him. In section 3, an offside player is placed onside if B, an opponent touches the ball without retaining it. Now, if we turn our attention to the footage, we can clearly see an opposition player, namely Joash Papali, touching the ball without retaining it, and a Broncos player, Reece Walsh, who is allegedly offside, we'll come to that, who is made onside. So what's the problem here? And you might say, hey, why'd you skip over section 2? Don't worry about it, that's for Todd Smith to raise in his defense. Also, Todd, what is your address for service? And sure, maybe Joash Papali doesn't fumble the ball if he's not being encroached upon by an allegedly offside player, but that's not the argument I'm making. And also, I'm not accepting that Walsh is offside based on one angle where the ball isn't visible, where the camera is behind and at an angle as well. The bunker looks at that once for 5 seconds and says, yeah, he's offside. Let's try and get into lefties before it becomes full of people who have already abandoned the line for the Caxton. And I'm sorry, but I just need a little more than that to believe that A, my team can lose, and B, that Reece Walsh isn't going to score game-winning tries every week. And I want some accountability here. Release the overhead angle. They had it for Tedesco to prove that they made the right decision there and that the bunker didn't ruin that game. But for Walsh, we get nothing, which can only possibly indicate guilt. Where is Spider-Cam? Until I have evidence in my hand which shows ball, foot, and line, preferably a highlighted green one, I'm exercising my right to conspiracy. Now I'm calling this game a win. Lee Harvey Oswald didn't do it. Reset. Hi, the Broncos are 11-7 after beating the Parramatta Eels 26-22 on Friday night. All right, I'm half joking. I am suing Todd Smith though, but that's part of a wider class action on behalf of all redheads. He's just bringing us down. But you know, sometimes you just get beat. I think that the Broncos beat themselves a touch in this game, but also Parra played their best game of the season and Mitch Moses would not be denied. I'm not happy about it, but I have to be honest, and I'm being told that other teams are allowed to play well. This was kind of the game that Parra had been building towards after some really tough showings against the Raiders and Panthers, where they held on for between 40 and 60 minutes, and now with their halfback returning, they do it for the full 80, or maybe like 75. Crazy return game for Mitch Moses, who always plays well against the Broncos, and especially at Suncorp. He kicked 747 metres, 121 than all Broncos combined. He's orchestrating a nightmare for the back five, kicking early, finding dirt, threatening 40-20s, and sending a reminder that the guy who won an Origin decider at Suncorp then dominated game one is pretty good. Also, their back five, bar Sean Russell, all ran more than 100 metres. Their bench was super productive. Walker and Geimer both cracked a ton. They basically got everything they needed out of all their players. They also got better in attack as the game went on. In the first half, things seemed a bit rote. Early in the game, they fell for the Karapani trap where he's floating like he's off ball, but really he's just giving himself room to hit harder. Then Reynolds scores the intercept try when he reads the attack and runs away with it, just barely making it. And the Broncos have Newton's first law to thank for all their tries in this game. And in the first half, the teams went kind of set for set. There were a few moments that the Broncos looked dangerous. I really like this little trick play they did at the end of the first half. Wouldn't mind seeing that play out in its entirety. But I also really didn't like them taking the 15 minutes into the game after Katoni was taken out on the kick chase, especially when they built some good momentum in that set. It felt like taking the 2 was almost an assumption that they'd be able to get back up there and do it again. And we've been seeing these last few weeks of the competition that no one's getting beat easily at the end of the season for some reason. A lesson the Broncos didn't learn after the Titans gave them a game, and now they're off beating the Waz. What I mean to say is that when you've got a chance for a third straight set and attack and against an opponent that you think you should beat, keep attacking. Parramatta punishes them for the hubris with a reminder of 2 of the truths of rugby league. Never let a kick hit dirt, and a second kick can go absolutely anywhere. Also an NBA truism, air balls go to the offense, and we hold these truths to be self-evident because it turns into the Sean Russell try. But I think there needs to be credit to Parramatta for their execution as much as there is blame for the Broncos getting it wrong. Moses makes that kick under insane pressure. He hits it from so far away from his body and makes something out of nothing. Russell does the same to finish the play. And sure, Walsh and Arthurs could have put in some more effort to get to the ball. I don't think either of them knew where that ball was going. I don't think anyone did. Then the first try to Lomax is some incredible execution by the Eels. Moses puts that ball in exactly the right spot, and Karapani on the line going backwards is never going to have a chance against Lomax on the run, and the Broncos just invited Parra in when Shibasaki gave away a penalty for no reason. Still needed the Eels to do something, but it's a whole lot easier when you give a team a set 10 metres out. Just trust your winger. Broncos enter the half up 14-12 on the back of a pretty easy try going outside into Hetherington, and you'd think that when the game resumed, the team with 10 wins might kick into gear and they'll close it out, while the team with 5 wins is going to lose their way and start going hard chasing points that they end up stepping on each other's toes. And surprise, it's the opposite. It's error time, baby. In the second half, the Broncos committed 7 of their 8 errors and 4 errors in 5 sets. You're not going to beat any team doing that. And of course, it's things like Walsh forcing a pass on fourth tackle when he's made a half break. Then the Eels go from one wing to another and score through Lomax, which is again great execution by Para after the Broncos have opened the door for them. Then Ezra spills one, taking a hit up when no one's back. But then it's smaller stuff, like Reynolds getting himself tackled on tackle 4, and Walsh still managed a good kick out of that one. But not much later, Reynolds gets a bit too cute by half by trying to get the ball to Karapani, which Adokar intercepted. And the errors are going to come from Reece Walsh. This is the bed that the team has made. Walsh is going to ride the lightning every single game, and when it comes off, when he demands the ball on fifth tackle and runs, it turns into points. And well done to the difference for backing him up and giving him the option. He still had some work to do to score that try. Also, thanks again to Isaac Newton for the assist, but you're also going to get the forward pass to Karapani when he's pushing for points. And the good gives you the confidence to try the bad, because sometimes the bad works too. But if I, an idiot, can recognize that, why can't a premiership winning veteran halfback do the same? Reynolds goes missing in the last 20 minutes, doesn't kick all that well in this one, more narrow kicks that don't achieve much, and he says that he needs to do more to help Reece stay calm. And I think one of the ways to do that is not put the entire responsibility to win the game on his back. Maybe do something too, Adam. This team will only go as far as Walsh will take them, that's true, but for Walsh to do well, he needs some help. And it's not all that much. Haas makes a great run not long after he's come back on in the second half, and that gives Walsh enough of an opportunity to create the try. But when Walsh is pushing the envelope and making errors and blowing it, that's normally an indication that no one else is doing anything. It's a concern that this late into the season, they're falling back into that same old habit of Reece, please save us. But here we are. Also, while we're complaining, Ben Hunt, would you like to run more than 15 meters? I know you've got plenty of mouths to feed and you're playing a bunch of defense, but please remember that you're a key attacking cog in this machine, and if the job was just to give service and make tackles, that'd still be Corey Pakes out there. Also, I know Pat Carrigan is amazing and he does so many good things that go unnoticed in terms of keeping the water running for everyone else, but I'm seeing a bit of Carrigan overrated, chat, and he's not. That's wrong. He runs 130 meters without anyone noticing, but it would be cool if that shallow criticism was able to be answered with like 3 try assists. Carrigan had to do extra work in this game after Haas went off early. His first stint was only 27 minutes. Willison also came off after only 26 minutes, so Carrigan was most of the game the Broncos' most important forward. And I think Haas's early bath was due partly to injury management and also partly to Parramatta just running him and Willison out of gas. They used their speed advantage and put those dudes to work and got them off the field. Willison was pretty gassed even at the end of the game. He's in the line after Reynolds makes a tackle. The Eels identify that and go straight for Adokar, and Staggs has to hold his line while Arthurs jams in. Dean Mariner, you stay ready. Not crazy about Jesse's form lately, even acknowledging that he's coming off an injury. Going forward, I think that if Jensen is fit enough to start and he managed 30 minutes in this one, he should go back to starting with Willison off the bench, because in the period of Hetherington and Jensen props, they were getting a whole lot of white boy doggedness and effort, but the lack of a guy who can properly bend the line coming off the bench was noticed. Ricky and Piakura were both pretty great in this one. Piakura didn't get penalised for any of his tackles this game, well done, but Parra defended them both well. Credit to Pensini for stopping a freight train charging at the line at the end of the game. But rejigging the bench might solve a few of these issues. I don't know, there's a whole lot of maybes in this game, but maybe just win. Or maybe Todd Smith can never referee a game of professional rugby league again. I'm choosing not to do the Todd stuff, and there's plenty of Todd stuff. This video is long enough already, but it's not ref blaming to point out that he's bad at his job. Like, I hated the Lomax call as much as any other. Him reversing from a penalty to a 6 again, and thereby completely disrupting the Broncos' momentum after Staggs had made a great break from the here, please do something. And 6 again is the right call there, letting the game flow on, and it has been for the last 3 years, so it's clear that Todd just doesn't know the rules. Anyway, ticket gutless index. I think I'm being harsh this week, and I'm giving the captain and both wingers a bar. Think about what you've done, or what you didn't do in the last 20 minutes. And you know what? Shibasaki has to take a dip. This was a pretty bad game by his standards, and it's disappointing only because the Shogun has been so reliable this year. 3-2-1 for best on ground is tough. I think Walsh, for all the errors, still comes out on top because he was making things happen. Then Ricky gets 2 points for leading the tackle count and Carrigan 1 point for carrying for most of the game. All right, let's call it a blip for now and ignore all the warning signs and prepare for this Friday night against South, where all of those problems will immediately go away. Bye.